Serious, what is the best unexplained mystery? Probably my favorite unsolved mystery is the Ellen Moore Lighthouse mystery. Basically the 3 lighthouse keepers disappeared from the island. Inside the lighthouse they found uneaten meals on the table and missing coats among other weird things. The creepy part is the logbook. It's supposed to be used strictly for logging work-related entries, but they started using it as a sort of journal diary. It was explained in the logbook how there was a terrible storm that was lasting for many days and that one of the keepers, an old, weathered seaman, was crying in fear. The last entry said that the storm had ended and everything was calm and fine. A neighboring island reported that there was never a storm. So the monarch butterfly migrates to Mexico and back every year. During the year there are a full 4 generations of butterflies that live and die during the journey. Upon returning back from Mexico, the butterfly manages to find the same trees its relatives started out at despite never having been there. A welcome change from stories of people not returning from woods. The disappearance of Nicholas Barclay Frederick Borden. In 1994, San Antonio, Texas, 13-year-old Nicholas Barclay disappeared from his home. 3 years later, Barclay was found huddled next to a phone booth halfway across the world in Linares, Spain. Authorities picked him up and reunited him with his family. However, certain things didn't add up. Barclay had very little memory of what happened to him, and couldn't give police a real answer as to how he ended up in Spain. Plus, his English was terrible, and when he did speak English it was with a heavy accent. This doesn't make sense for someone who spent the first 13 years of his life in the United States. But these discrepancies were explained away by the fact that Barclay was probably just coping with the emotional trauma of being kidnapped to a foreign country and kept away from his family for 3 years. One thing no one could explain though, was that when Nicholas returned to the United States, his eyes were a different color than when he originally disappeared. Barclay tried to resume a normal life, enrolling back into his old school, moving back in with his family, etc. About 4 months after reuniting with his family, a private investigator discovered that Nicholas Barclay actually wasn't Barclay, but a con artist named Frederick Borden. Borden was wanted by Interpol because he had a habit of stealing the identity of missing youths. Borden was arrested, but this brought about even more disturbing questions about Nicholas's disappearance. Apparently, Nicholas was a very unruly and problematic child. He was always getting into trouble at school, and there were several police reports from his family's house about domestic disturbances and arguments that worsened in the months before he went missing. Nicholas's mom moved her brother into their house, Nicholas's uncle, shortly before he disappeared to help give Nicholas some structure. It is rumored that he couldn't handle Nicholas and instead killed him. This would explain why the family was so willing to accept someone who wasn't their son as their lost boy. If it was believed that Nicholas was alive, any murder investigation would come to a halt. Even more interesting, after Borden was arrested, police began reopening and investigating the case. Nicholas's uncle promptly killed himself. In Australia, in 2011, someone broke into a TV station and spent 4 hours flushing $100,000 down the toilet. It is mind-boggling. Why? Probably drug money that wasn't his. The Legends of Nahani Valley. It's a valley in Nahani National Park in the NW Territory in Canada. Very isolated and remote. Largely unexplored. Also known as Valley of the Headless Men. Many of the tribes in the area avoided it for thousands of years, believing it was an evil haunted place, inhabited by strange beings, spirits, etc. A violent tribe called the Naha was said to inhabit it, with large men and strange weapons. They liked to decapitate their victims. They mysteriously disappeared one day, never to be seen again. When the frontiermen, miners, etc. started coming in, many mysteriously ended up decapitated. Others just disappeared. It's long had reports of strange lights, UFOs, cryptids, living fossils. Overall a strange place, and interesting to read about. The disappearance of Brian Schaffer. He was a 27-year-old medical student caught on camera entering but never leaving a bar in Columbus, Ohio. That area of town was a lot rougher back then, but it's still worth mentioning that it's a second-floor bar with only one real entrance exit. The building was getting renovations at the time, but it still would have been super hard to take someone, unnoticed, out of their against their will. I'd say the East Area Rapist original Night Stalker's identity is one of the craziest mysteries to me. He committed 40-50 RPs, around a dozen murders, called a few of his victims, and still nothing is known about the guy. So I have a personal experience, sort of. My father had a co-worker who was a great guy, good at his work, fun to talk to, nobody had any complaints about him. He lived in an apartment right next to work, so the night watchman at the workplace would see him whenever he went out. So one night, he went out in his pajamas, talking on his cell phone, nodded at the watchman. The watchman didn't think much of it. After all, it's not all that weird to take a walk even though it was quite late. He didn't think much of it. The watchman didn't see him come back, but he figured he missed him when he went on his bathroom break probably. But the guy didn't show up at work the next day. Someone from work went to check up and he wasn't there. Nothing was disturbed, he was just gone. Everyone thought he had dropped dead, killed by thugs or an accident or some medical condition. The workplace filed a police report. Here's when it gets weird. It turns out, the guy had created a fake identity. Any credentials he had given were fake. The references he had given had never heard of him. The family address he'd given didn't exist. The police didn't find anything illegal in the apartment, but they didn't find anything that would give a clue as to who he was either. We moved away a few years ago, but I don't think the case was ever solved. It's definitely the best unexplained mystery that I've personally come across. Husker Castle creeps me out. Basically, this Bohemian fortress was constructed on top of an ancient Slavo-Germanic pagan ritual site, which was a very deep hole. Nothing too weird about that except for the way the castle was built. For one, it's built in a useless position and served no strategic purpose, so it was not desirable for medieval lords of Bohemia or any invaders to control. Then people realized that the castle was actually inverted. The fortifications were on the inside, arrow slits, turrets, thick fortress walls slanting into the castle, etc. It's as if they were trying to keep something inside. There's a legend that a Bohemian king lowered a prisoner into the hole that the castle was built on and he began screaming, so they pulled him back up and he had aged 60 years and died. Then during World War II the Nazis did actually occupy the castle for a time, but they reported some strange sounds, and when Allied forces stormed the castle the Nazis were dead or abandoned the place. For sure there's some folklore involved with the place, but the fact that the castle was built clearly to keep something inside opposed to out, and even the Nazis had issues with it, it definitely makes it seem like some ancient horror lies within that hole. The lead mask mystery of Brazil. The bodies of two men found wearing lead masks covering their eyes with a notebook that mysteriously read 4:30 p.m. be at the determined place. 6:30 p.m. swallow capsules. After effect. Protect metals. Wait for signal in Portuguese. Rico Harris. He was a massive 6 feet 9 inches former Harlem Globetrotter basketball player who had drug issues earlier in his life, but had made a full recovery and was getting his life back on track. He was driving along California's Interstate I-5 from his home in Southern California to Seattle to live with his girlfriend. He was somewhere just north of Sacramento, exhausted, and told his girlfriend over the phone that he wanted to check out the mountains. All calls stopped since then. His car was found a couple days later by a patrolman near a rest stop in the mountains. A massive search was launched. No signs of him. The strangest part, a driver later reported seeing a massive 6 feet 9 inches individual wandering down the highway, just a mile from where the car was found. A week later, a search was relaunched. Massive size 17 footprints were found in the ground that were not there before. They were getting very close. And then, nothing. No trace, no body, nothing. Where did Rico go the first time he disappeared? Where was he for an entire week? And where did he disappear to again? The fact that someone could disappear twice is what makes this so dang mystifying to me. My favorite is the disappearance of Ray Greco. Ray Frank Greco was an American attorney who served as the district attorney of Center County, Pennsylvania, from 1985 until 2005. On the 15th of April, 2005, Greco went missing under mysterious circumstances and has not been heard from since. After he had been missing for over 6 years with no trace of his whereabouts, Center County authorities declared Greco legally dead on the 25th of July, 2011. That's the short version. The long version is he was the dad that oversaw Center County, and that includes Penn State University. There were rumors that at the time of his disappearance he was looking into the Second Mile. The Second Mile was a non-profit organization for underprivileged youth, providing help for at-risk children and support for their parents in Pennsylvania. It was founded in 1977 by Jerry Sandusky, a then Penn State assistant college football coach. The cops eventually found his car. The car contained his county-issued cell phone but not his laptop computer, nor his keys, nor his wallet, and investigators identified no signs of foul play. On the 30th of July, 2005, fishermen discovered the county-issued laptop computer of Ray Greco in the Susquehanna River beneath a bridge between Lewisburg and Milton. A Pennsylvania State Police computer expert analyzed the computer and found that its hard drive was missing. 2 months later, someone recovered a hard drive on the banks of the Susquehanna River about 100 yards from the location of the laptop. However, it was badly damaged, and analysis by the FBI, U.S. Secret Service and the firm Crawl on Track all attempted but failed to recover any data from the hard drive. My theory, he was about to drop the hammer on the Second Mile, rumored to be a pedo ring, and Sandusky but got found out. They got him, they killed him, and they destroyed the evidence. Coral Castle, Ed Leedskelnen. There's a little 25 minutes documentary on YouTube that shows what this guy did. He was 5'2", under 100 pounds, and claimed he knew the secrets of the pyramids and Machu Picchu. This guy was lifting 20-ton blocks, and they say he had a sixth sense. Anytime someone tried to spy on him, he would know and stop working, and they'd only be able to see him just putzing around, not working. He died with his secrets. Coral Castle is still in Florida for people to visit. He made door out of an 11-ton boulder that was perfectly balanced on a pivot point that was so perfect a child could open it by pushing it with a finger. When they went to repair this door, it took 6 men and a 20-ton crane, I may have weight of crane wrong, to take it down, and they could not get the balance perfect again once they took it apart. The Somerton Man. The body of an unidentified man was found on Somerton Beach, South Australia in 1948. In his pocket, the man had a piece of a paper with the words Taman Shud printed on it, a Persian phrase meaning ended. After a police appeal, the book Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam was handed in to police by a man who claimed it was put inside his car via an open window. This book had a piece of the final page torn, matching the paper from the Somerton Man. The back cover of the book had indentations from handwriting, believed to be a code. To this day the man has never been identified, nor has the code been deciphered. Disappearance of Asha Degree. She was a shy 9-year-old girl who randomly left her house around 2 AM on Valentine's Day, 2000, in pouring rain. Her backpack was found later, but she never was. It's even stranger because some of the more common explanations for child disappearances don't apply here. For example, there was no computer in her house, so she couldn't have met some stranger who lured her out. She did well in school and she had a supportive family, so none of the typical reasons children run away. She was also extremely afraid of dogs, so it was out of character for her to go walking around alone. There were never any real clues to her disappearance, and the trail went cold basically the day it happened. One I like, especially because it is victimless, is who on earth was behind the infamous Max Headroom broadcast hack. It was in the 80s and interrupted an episode of Doctor Who. The disappearance of Terence Williams and Felipe Santos. Terence Williams and Felipe Santos went missing in 2004 and 2003, respectively, under similar circumstances in Naples, Florida. Both men were last seen being arrested by former Collier County Sheriff's Deputy Corporal Steve Calkins for driving without a license. He claims he changed his mind about both arrests and last saw the men after he dropped them at Circle K convenience stores. Actor Tyler Perry offered a $100,000 reward for any information leading to the location of the men or leading to an arrest in the case. Al Sharpton, of the National Action Network, and Ben Jealous, President and CEO of the NAACP, also joined Perry in raising awareness of the cause. My favorite is the David Lutton in Manchester, UK. It took a long time to identify the man, Even with photographs shared around, they found that the British man travelled to London from Pakistan and the same day walked into a pub in Manchester asking for directions to the top of the mountain. He was warned against it as it would be night time in the dead of winter by the time he gets there. He had nothing on him except train tickets and £130. His body was found the next day, lying down fully clothed with some medication in his pocket, which wasn't a dangerous medication from what I remember. The dancing plague of 1518 was a case of dancing mania that occurred in Strasbourg in July 1518. Around 400 people took to dancing for days without rest and, over the period of about 1 month, some of those affected collapsed or even died of heart attack, stroke, or exhaustion. Historical documents, including physician notes, cathedral sermons, local and regional chronicles, and even notes issued by the Strasbourg City Council are clear that the victims danced. It is not known why these people danced, some even to their deaths. The Hinterkaifeck murders. German farmer found footprints leading from the woods to his farm, but no footprints going back. Days later he was murdered along with his whole family. One I feel a connection to because I followed it from the beginning. 4 years ago a young girl called Cassile Pinel went missing. Was at a music festival in Croatia with a few friends. One morning she got out of the van to go for a pee. She never came back. She was reported missing shortly after. The area was searched and they found her wallet and phone in an abandoned ruin not far away. No trace of her anywhere though. Just a few days ago some bones were found not far from where she disappeared from. DNA tests show it's her, She apparently died from a blow to the head but no one knows anymore and the family are trying to get her remains back so they can ask for a real autopsy. The Croatian police were not helpful at all and the French police didn't give a crap either, so no one knows what happened to her. There are hundreds of medieval artworks, paintings, drawings and books that depict men, sometimes knights, fighting snails. Sometimes the snails are snail size, sometimes they are huge. Nobody has the faintest idea why or what these pictures mean. Sounds like medieval shitposting. Orange air. I was visiting friends in Vancouver, Canada in the autumn of 1999. At around 9 PM we stepped outside and soon tried to figure out what big bright sign or light was illuminating everything orange. To our amazement there was no lights of any kind. Then a neighbor came out and asked where the light was coming from. The haze, the fog, the air itself was absolutely glowing a greenish orange. Soon, others appeared, dog walkers coming back bewildered. We decided to take a walk and sure enough it was everywhere. We saw another neighbor waving their arms in the air as if it was smoke but it was just as if the atmosphere, the air itself was simply electrified orange. About an hour later it wasn't too noticeable anymore but for what it's worth, the sky, as in looking up to the clouds was the most astonishing and strange electric blue I have ever seen in my life. Anyways, yes, there were enough reports to a local planetarium that it was mentioned on local radio stations. The experts on hand suggested the only known way this could happen is if some sort of meteor or meteor shower had zoomed through the sky and some sort of glow phenomenon can happen. However, they emphasized that they had detected no such meteors at all. Nobody else heard or saw anything about meteors from locals either. To this day I have never heard any kind of explanation. I've never even heard or seen a similar experience. I don't know that I've ever found even a good hypothesis online in going on 20 years of internet accumulation. The whole neighborhood was glowing orange. The air itself was a bright glowing hue, as if a massive orange stagellite was being shined from somewhere we couldn't see. Well, for me, that's still the best unsolved mystery. I vote for the Zodiac Killer. He left multiple cryptic messages, some of which never got decoded, but they never identified him. There's much debate as to what happened to him, and even how extensive the scope of his killings. I believe the FBI still has a reward on information leading to his arrest, but nobody has heard anything in decades. I've always agreed with the idea that he was just a wacko who wanted to be remembered and that a lot of his cryptic stuff was actually just random bulls to keep the investigation from ever ending. MH mother freaking 370. What the heck happened to that plane and all those people? The 1962 Alcatraz Escape. I really hope they managed to escape even though they were criminals. because I don't think they ever injured anybody. I am very interested in crime that requires smart thinking and where nobody gets injured by the criminals. It was deemed likely that they got swept out to sea, but the Mythbusters did prove that it was possible for them to have made it to shore. There were rumors that head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, was a cross-dresser. One day the actress Vivian Vance came to visit the FBI. Years later the visitor logs were checked, but Vivian Vance was not in them. Even if not true, it is hilarious. I'm still intrigued by the recent one of the two girls who actually got some recording of their abduction, but last I heard it was still a mystery. Liberty German and Abigail Williams. I heard that they found this guy who had a resemblance to the suspect and had been threatening hikers in a nearby state, but I don't think they have him as the killer of the girls. You have been visited by the science doggo. Upvote now and you will get high grades and good results within the next week. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.